Ethan had never been good at finding his way around new places, but tonight he was more distracted than usual. He had just moved into a large apartment complex on the edge of the city, a building that looked ordinary enough from the outside, but inside it was a maze of long, dimly lit corridors and identical doors. He had spent the last hour wandering, trying to locate his apartment after returning from a late-night errand. Each door looked the same, and the flickering hallway lights made it even harder to distinguish one from another. He muttered to himself, frustrated. "Where is it? 312? 312? He checked the number on the slip of paper again. It had been a long day at work, and he was tired. His mind kept drifting back to emails, deadlines, and the nagging feeling that he had forgotten something important. His steps echoed softly on the polished floor as he hurried down the hall. Finally, he spotted a door with the number that looked closest to his own, though he was still unsure. Without thinking, he inserted the key and turned the handle. The door opened smoothly, but the room inside was not what he expected. It was not a simple empty apartment with plain furniture. Instead, the room glowed with soft, multicolored lights, and the air seemed to hum gently, almost as if it were alive. Ethan froze, his hand still on the door. "What? What is this?" he whispered, stepping inside cautiously. The room was furnished unlike anything he had seen before. There were no ordinary chairs, tables, or lamps. Instead, shapes floated gently in the air and surfaces shimmered as though made of liquid light. Small spheres hovered near the ceiling, moving in patterns that seemed deliberate, almost intelligent. Ethan's eyes darted around the room, trying to make sense of it all. Then, from the far side of the room, he saw her. A woman stood there, tall and graceful, with features that were both human-like and strangely otherworldly. Her skin reflected subtle colors, changing with the soft glow of the room. Her eyes shone faintly, almost like they contained stars. She looked directly at him, and for a moment Ethan felt as though she could see everything. Every thought, every fear, every memory he had ever had. Ethan's heart pounded. He had to remind himself to breathe. I think I'm in the wrong room," he said, his voice shaky. He instinctively stepped back toward the door, wanting to escape the strange and beautiful presence before him. The woman smiled gently, not in a threatening way, but in a calm, knowing way that made his heart skip. Then she whispered softly, almost in a musical tone, "I know." Ethan froze. He could not understand how she knew. The words sent a chill down his spine, but at the same time there was something oddly comforting about the tone of her voice. She did not seem angry or hostile. Instead, she radiated patience and understanding. Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "What is this place?" The woman did not answer immediately. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, and Ethan felt a strange awareness creeping into his mind. It was as if she could reach into his thoughts without touching him, letting him feel emotions and images instead of using words. Flashes of light, colors, and distant places filled his mind, accompanied by feelings of peace, curiosity, and wonder. For a moment, Ethan's fear mixed with awe. He realized that he was standing in front of something entirely beyond his understanding. Why are you here?" he asked, still trying to make sense of the impossible situation. The woman stepped closer, but she did not move in the usual way. She seemed to glide rather than walk, her movements smooth and effortless. "I am here to observe," she said softly, her voice echoing slightly in his mind. "I watch, I learn, and sometimes I choose to reveal a little, to see how humans respond." Ethan's mind raced. Observe? Reveal? Humans? It made no sense, yet somehow deep inside he felt the truth of her words. He had seen strange patterns. In the floating lights, the glowing spheres, the way the air seemed to vibrate with energy. Everything here was deliberate, controlled, and beyond ordinary comprehension. I don't understand," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. Are you real?" The woman's smile widened slightly, gentle and calm. as real as you choose to perceive. What is important is not whether I am real, but what you are ready to see. Some humans would run, some would panic, but you are different. You are curious, and that is why you are here. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He wanted to run, yet he could not bring himself to move. Something inside him had shifted. He realized that his ordinary life, his predictable world, could not contain the possibilities he now sensed. He took a cautious step forward, drawn by curiosity, by the need to understand what lay before him. The woman extended her hand slightly, not to touch, but as a gesture of reassurance. Ethan noticed that despite the strangeness of her appearance in the room, there was no threat in her presence. It was as if she had chosen this encounter carefully, knowing exactly how to calm the fear of someone like him. What is this place? He asked again, his voice softer now. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. This place is a space for observation, she explained gently. It exists between what humans know and what they have yet to perceive. I come here to learn, to see, to understand, and now you are here. That is no accident. You are not an ordinary human. You are aware, and that is why you have found this place. Ethan's mind reeled. He tried to wrap his head around the impossibility of what she was saying. Not ordinary? A space between perception? His rational mind struggled, but the feeling in his chest told him she spoke the truth. He realized he had crossed a threshold he could not unsee. For several minutes they stood in silence. The room glowed softly around them. Ethan felt his fear slowly replaced by a sense of awe. The woman's presence was not frightening. It was profound, almost calming. He began to notice the subtle movements of the spheres, the faint hum of energy, and the patterns in the light. Everything felt alive, as if the room itself was aware of him. Finally, he whispered, "Why me? Why did I come here?" The woman's eyes glimmered, and her voice was soft yet filled with certainty. "Because you are ready. Curiosity, awareness, openness, these are rare qualities. Most humans would not understand. But you have chosen to see beyond the ordinary, and that is why you are here. The path ahead is not simple, but you have already begun." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling both fear and anticipation. He realized that this was not a random mistake. He had entered this room for a reason, and his life had already started to change in ways he could not yet comprehend. For the first time, he felt the possibility of something larger than himself, something beyond Earth waiting to be discovered. The woman smiled again, gently, knowingly. "Do not fear," she whispered. "The first step is always the hardest. You have already taken it by being here." Ethan nodded, unable to speak, and for the first time he felt a strange sense of belonging in this extraordinary glowing room. Whatever lay ahead, he knew his life would never be the same again. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, his heart pounding like a drum. The glow from the lights in the room made everything look unreal, almost dreamlike. The woman's eyes seemed to shine softly, like small stars reflecting in the dim light. He tried to move, to step back and tell himself it was just a mistake, but he couldn't. There was something about her presence that made it impossible to leave. She smiled again, not in a threatening way, but gently, as if she understood every fear and confusion running through him. Then she whispered, "I know." The sound of her voice, soft and musical, echoed in his mind. It wasn't just a sound. It felt as if it carried meaning, not only in words, but in feelings. He felt his thoughts becoming clearer and yet strange, as though she could see right into him without touching him. Ethan's first instinct was to run, to escape this impossible situation, but curiosity held him in place. He took a small step forward, glancing around the room. The furniture seemed unlike anything he had ever seen. There were no ordinary chairs or tables. Instead, there were floating shapes, smooth surfaces that glowed slightly, and what looked like screens hovering in the air, showing places he didn't recognize. The air itself seemed to hum with a soft energy, not loud, but persistent, filling the space with an almost soothing vibration. "Who? What are you?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. The words felt inadequate, as if no human language could describe what he was seeing. The woman tilted her head slightly, her expression calm and patient. She didn't answer immediately with words. Instead, Ethan felt a sudden awareness, a strange sense of understanding that washed over him like waves. In his mind, he saw flashes of images, cities with towers taller than anything on Earth, beings moving gracefully through air currents, lights shimmering in colors he could barely describe. Then he felt emotions, peace, curiosity, and a gentle warning, as though she was showing him only what was safe to see. Ethan staggered back slightly, overwhelmed. I don't understand," he stammered. His mind was spinning with the impossible reality before him. The woman stepped closer, but not threateningly. She extended her hand, not to touch, but as a gesture of reassurance. Ethan noticed that her movements were precise and elegant, almost like she was floating rather than walking. "You are safe," she said softly. "You need not fear." Her voice was in his ears, yet also in his mind. "I have watched, I have learned, and now I am here. You are unusual, and I wish to know more." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. He wasn't sure if he should be frightened or honored. The way she spoke made it seem as if she could read his thoughts, his memories, even the smallest details he had never shared with anyone. She didn't ask. She simply seemed to understand. "What do you mean, watched?" Ethan asked cautiously. "Are you from somewhere else?" Her smile widened slightly, not in mockery but in gentle confirmation. She didn't answer directly. Instead, Ethan felt more images, more impressions flowing into his mind. He saw stars, planets, and light traveling in ways he could not explain. He understood, not in words but in feeling, that she had traveled a great distance to be here, to observe humanity without interfering. She was studying, learning, and now perhaps choosing to interact with him because he was different. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. His logical mind struggled to process what was happening. This woman, this being, had powers or abilities that were far beyond human comprehension, yet she was calm, peaceful, and somehow trustworthy. He wondered why she had chosen him of all people. What made him different? She seemed to read the question in his mind. "You are open," she whispered. "You are curious, and your heart is willing to see beyond what is ordinary. Many would run, many would not understand. You are ready to know, and that is why I am here." Ethan's fear slowly gave way to curiosity. He stepped further into the room, observing the objects that hovered around them. Small lights floated like fireflies, and soft sounds filled the air. Melodies that were not music, but something more, like emotions given form. It was mesmerizing. He felt a pull toward understanding, toward learning more, even if it scared him. She gestured toward one of the hovering objects. It was a small globe-like sphere, showing Earth from above. Cities glowed with tiny lights, and Ethan could see patterns of movement, people going about their lives. He realized that she was observing his world in ways no human could. "You watch us," he said, his voice a mixture of wonder and disbelief. "Yes," she replied. "I observe, but I do not interfere. We are careful. We watch to learn, to understand. Humans are curious, and that is why you will see many things if you are ready. But you must know, not everything is as it seems. Perception is limited, and time is only a part of what exists." Ethan struggled to follow. Time? Perception? His head spun as the words sank in. He realized this encounter was not a simple mistake or accident. This was deliberate. She had allowed him to enter her space for a reason, and he had no choice but to accept it. The woman smiled again, her presence calming him. She did not demand understanding immediately. Instead, she offered patience, letting him adjust to the strange, luminous reality around them. Ethan felt a connection he could not explain, as if she somehow understood his deepest thoughts and feelings, and yet did not judge them. Hours might have passed, or maybe only minutes. Ethan had no way of knowing. He felt himself becoming more aware, noticing subtle shifts in the room, changes in light, small movements that he could barely perceive. His senses seemed sharper, and he realized that something inside him was awakening. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter now. "Why me? Why now?" The woman's eyes softened and she stepped closer, her voice like a gentle wind. "Because you are ready. Because you can learn. Because the world will change, and some must understand before others. Your choice is not simple, but it begins with awareness. You will see and you will know if you are willing." Ethan looked at her, and for the first time, he did not feel fear. He felt possibility, a doorway opening into something greater than himself, something beyond Earth, beyond ordinary life, something that promised knowledge, wonder, and a glimpse into the universe itself. He nodded slightly, uncertain, but willing. And in that moment, standing in the glow of the strange room, he knew that his life had already changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. After that first encounter, Ethan could not stop thinking about the woman and the strange room he had entered. Days passed, but he felt an invisible pull, a gentle but firm tug in his mind, guiding him back toward that mysterious door. During the day, he tried to act normal, going to work, meeting colleagues, and living his routine life. But everything felt different now. Colors seemed brighter, sounds more vivid, and even ordinary conversations carried new meaning. He could sense emotions more clearly, even when people tried to hide them. That night, unable to resist, Ethan found himself walking down the dimly lit corridor again. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the door handle. The door seemed to glow faintly, welcoming him. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside, and once again he was enveloped by the strange, serene atmosphere of the room. The glowing objects floated gently, casting soft lights that danced on the walls. The faint hum of energy filled the air, but instead of startling him, it felt comforting, like a familiar song he had forgotten he knew. The woman was there, waiting. She did not speak at first, but simply looked at him with the same calm, knowing eyes. Ethan felt that she had been expecting him, that she knew he would return. Her presence was no longer frightening. It felt necessary, as if he had been missing something in his life and she had the pieces he had never seen. "You came back," she said softly, her voice echoing in his mind. "I wondered if you would." Ethan nodded. "I couldn't stay away. I keep thinking about you. About this place I don't understand, but I need to know more." The woman's smile widened slightly. "That is why you are here. Curiosity is the first step toward understanding. But understanding comes slowly. You must be patient and open, and I will show you what is safe to see." She moved gracefully toward one of the floating spheres. This one glowed brighter than the others, showing a rotating image of Earth from above. Cities, mountains, rivers, and oceans could be seen in astonishing detail. Ethan noticed patterns in the movement of people, in the flow of traffic, even in the rhythm of the cities themselves. "You watch us all the time," he said quietly. "You can see everything." "Yes," she replied. "We observe to learn. We do not interfere unless necessary. Humans are changing, evolving, and some will need guidance. You are among those who will see more, who will feel more. It is not a gift given lightly, and it carries responsibility." Ethan felt a mixture of awe and fear. Responsibility? For what? He did not yet fully understand, but he sensed that whatever was coming, he could not ignore it. He looked at her, seeing the calm determination in her face. She was not threatening, but she held a power he could not grasp, one that extended beyond the limits of his understanding. "Can you teach me?" Ethan asked hesitantly. "I want to understand what you know, what you've seen. I don't want to be left behind in my own world." She nodded gently. "Yes, I can. But learning is not about words alone. You will need to open your mind, your heart, and your senses. You will see patterns, feel energy, and understand in ways humans rarely do. You will be guided, but you must also choose to see clearly, without fear. Ethan took another step forward, feeling the pull of curiosity stronger than ever. I'm ready, he said, his voice steadying with each word. Show me. The woman extended her hand slightly, and Ethan felt a gentle warmth spread through him. Suddenly, the room seemed to expand, and he could see not just the physical space, but the energy connecting everything within it. Floating lights moved along invisible lines, patterns of motion that were almost musical. Ethan realized he could sense connections between objects, even between himself and the woman. He could feel her thoughts, but not in words, more like emotions and images flowing into his mind. You feel it, she said softly, noticing his reaction. This is the first step. To understand the universe, one must feel the links between all things, even those unseen. Humans often ignore these patterns because they rely too much on the senses and not enough on the mind's awareness. Ethan nodded, trying to focus. He reached out with his thoughts, not his hands, and brushed against one of the glowing spheres. A vision flashed before his eyes, cities from another planet, beings moving gracefully, energy flowing in streams that bent and twisted in ways his mind struggled to comprehend. He blinked, overwhelmed but exhilarated. You are learning quickly, the woman whispered. Some humans would be frightened, but you are ready. You have the curiosity, the patience, and the openness necessary. Ethan could hardly speak. I feel everything. It's amazing, but I can't describe it. How is this possible? The woman smiled. Possibility is only limited by perception. You are beginning to perceive what has always been present. This is a gift, yes, but also a responsibility. What you learn here will change how you see your world and, in time, how you act within it. For the next hours, or perhaps it was longer, time felt fluid. Ethan learned to focus his attention in ways he never had before. The woman guided him gently, showing him how to sense patterns in motion, energy, and thought. He discovered that even small things like a flicker of light or a movement of air carried information he could feel if he concentrated. It was like learning a new language, one without words, spoken through understanding and connection. At one point, Ethan paused, overwhelmed by the intensity of what he was experiencing. I don't know if I can handle all of this, he admitted, his voice trembling. She placed her hand lightly in the air near his shoulder, not touching, but her presence alone brought calm. You do not need to handle it alone. You are not expected to understand everything at once. Learning is gradual. Patience is as important as curiosity. Do not fear the unknown. Embrace it carefully, and it will reveal itself. Ethan nodded again, feeling reassurance he had never known before. For the first time, he realized that the strange fear he had felt during his first encounter had been replaced by wonder. His world, once ordinary and predictable, had become larger, fuller, and infinitely more complex. By the end of the night, Ethan felt exhausted but exhilarated. He had glimpsed worlds, energies, and patterns he never thought possible. Most importantly, he felt a connection, not just to the woman, but to something larger than himself, a universe alive with unseen forces and intelligence. As he left the Yao's room, the woman's eyes followed him, warm and knowing. Remember, she said softly, what you have begun here is only the start. You will return when you are ready. Each step will be more revealing than the last. Keep your mind open, and your heart will guide you. Ethan stepped into the corridor, the door closing silently behind him. His hands were still trembling, but his mind felt sharper, alive in ways he could not yet fully describe. He looked around the familiar hallway and realized that nothing would ever feel the same again. His life had been touched by something extraordinary, and he knew deep down that the real journey was only beginning. Ethan could not stop thinking about his last visit to the strange room. The images, the sensations, and the connection he felt with the woman lingered in his mind like a soft, glowing memory. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the patterns of light and energy that she had shown him. He realized he had started noticing small details in his daily life, people's emotions, subtle movements, even the rhythm of conversations. Everything seemed more connected than before, as if an invisible web linked all things together. That evening, Ethan felt an irresistible pull back to the room. He walked through the dim corridor, heart pounding, and opened the door. The woman was waiting, as if she had known he would come. She stood calmly, her eyes bright, almost welcoming him. Ethan felt that something significant was about to happen. "I've returned," he said quietly. "I want to understand more. I need to know what you mean when you talk about responsibility and change." She smiled, a gentle curve of her lips, and stepped closer. "You are ready," she said softly. "It is time for a choice. The path you take now will shape your future. You may continue your ordinary life, or you may learn to see beyond, to understand the universe in ways humans rarely do. But every choice has consequences." Ethan hesitated. The idea was thrilling but also frightening. To leave behind ordinary life, to step into a world of unknown knowledge and perception, was daunting. He thought of his apartment, his job, his friends, and the world he had always known. Could he really leave that behind? And yet, part of him felt incomplete without understanding more of the universe, without exploring the connection that had already begun to change him. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why do you choose to show this to me?" "You are open," she replied. "You are curious, willing to see beyond fear. Others would flee, but you stay. Others would be overwhelmed, but you seek understanding. That is why you are here. The universe chooses carefully those who are ready, and you are among them." Ethan felt a surge of both pride and fear. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. What did she mean by responsibility? Was it simply knowledge, or was it something more? He felt that this choice was not just about him. It might affect the world itself. The woman gestured toward the glowing spheres floating in the room. Each one displayed a vision, a city, a river, a mountain range, or even a moment in the lives of people he did not know. Some showed patterns of behavior, subtle connections between humans, and even hints of unseen energies influencing life. She guided him gently through each vision, helping him understand the links and flows of energy he had begun to sense. "You can choose to continue as before," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Your life will remain safe and ordinary, or you can step into understanding. You will see, feel, and learn things beyond your imagination. But be aware, once you begin this path, life as you knew it will change forever. The ordinary world may feel small, and you may find it difficult to explain your experiences to others." Ethan looked at her, studying her face, her calm confidence, and the strange beauty in her eyes. He realized that what she offered was not simply knowledge. It was a doorway to a completely new way of living. He imagined himself moving through the world aware of patterns, connections, and hidden truths that most people could never see. A part of him longed for that experience. Another part, however, feared the loss of normalcy. I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. "It's exciting, but I'm afraid of losing everything I know. My life, my friends, my job. Will it all matter if I choose this path?" The woman stepped closer, almost beside him, though he could not see her moving in the usual way. "All things matter," she said gently, "but matter in different ways. What you know now is only a beginning. Life continues, whether you walk this path or another. But the path of understanding opens your mind and heart to the universe in ways you cannot yet imagine. Fear is natural. Courage is choosing to move forward despite fear." Ethan took a deep breath. He felt the weight of the choice, but also an exhilaration he had never experienced. He realized that the fear of stepping into the unknown was matched by the fear of remaining ignorant. A part of him had already begun to change, had already begun to see the world differently. Perhaps, he thought, the ordinary life he feared losing was already behind him. I want to try," he said finally. "I want to see, to learn, to understand. I'll follow this path with you." The woman's eyes shone with approval. "Then you are ready," she whispered. "Your journey begins now. Each step will reveal more than the last. Remember, patience is as important as curiosity. Do not rush and do not fear. What you will see will change you, but it will also guide you to greater understanding. Ethan felt a rush of energy flow through him, a warmth that seemed to connect him not only to the room but to the woman and the visions she had shown him. He realized that he was standing on the edge of something vast, infinite and beautiful. He could feel patterns of life, connections, and possibilities stretching outward, waiting for him to notice and understand them. For hours, or perhaps minutes, the concept of time had become strange. She guided him through visions showing him energies, patterns, and the subtle forces shaping life. He felt a responsibility to learn, to remember, and to carry this knowledge forward. And as he left the room that night, the glow of the door behind him seemed to promise that this was only the beginning. Ethan walked into the corridor, the familiar walls now looking different. Ordinary life had not changed, but he had. He knew the choice he had made would shape everything, and he felt both fear and wonder in equal measure. The woman had shown him the first step, but the path ahead was long, mysterious, and filled with discoveries he could not yet imagine. Days passed, and Ethan found himself thinking constantly about the woman, the room, and the knowledge he had begun to receive. At first, he tried to continue his ordinary life, but the ordinary no longer felt sufficient. The city, the streets, and the people seemed to hum with unseen energy. He noticed patterns that had gone unnoticed before, how pedestrians moved, how conversations flowed, how subtle choices shaped outcomes. Everything was connected, and he could sense it in a way that was both exhilarating and exhausting. That night, as he approached the glowing door, he felt anticipation unlike anything he had ever known. The woman was waiting for him, calm and serene. "You have returned," she said softly. "It is time for the next stage. You have learned to perceive connections. Now you will begin to understand purpose. Each choice, each action, each thought has meaning. You are ready to see more." Ethan stepped inside, feeling the energy of the room envelop him. The spheres floated around him, displaying visions that were more vivid, more complex. He saw cities, forests, oceans, and stars in ways that seemed alive. He felt the flow of energy moving through them, connecting everything in a web of motion, light, and thought. He could sense the choices of people, their hopes, fears, and intentions, as if they were threads woven into the fabric of the world. "You see now how life is interconnected," the woman whispered. "This is only the beginning. Understanding is not a gift, it is a responsibility. You will need to use this knowledge wisely, for it will shape not only your life, but the lives of those around you. You are a bridge between perception and action, between the seen and unseen." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and beauty of her words. He realized that the woman had not simply shown him visions. She had opened his mind to perceive reality in its full depth. Ordinary life, he understood, would never feel ordinary again. Each decision, each moment, carried significance beyond what he had known. As he focused, the woman guided him further, showing him how energy and intention flowed through humans, shaping outcomes and creating ripple effects. He saw how small acts of kindness, curiosity, or courage could influence countless lives. He understood that knowledge alone was not enough. Wisdom required observation, understanding, and careful action. "You are learning quickly," she said. "Some humans would be frightened, some would reject this knowledge, but you are ready. You will see more, understand more, and in time guide others in ways they cannot yet perceive. Your role is not to control, but to observe, to learn, and to guide when necessary." Ethan felt a profound sense of purpose. His life, once ordinary and predictable, had been transformed. He understood now that he had been chosen because he could perceive, because he could remain open and curious. The world was no longer a series of random events. It was a complex, interconnected system, and he had begun to see the patterns that shaped it. Hours passed, or perhaps days, inside the glowing room. Ethan felt exhausted, but alive in ways he had never imagined. The woman's presence remained calm, guiding, patient. She showed him how to balance perception with action, understanding with empathy. He realized that this knowledge was not meant to separate him from humanity, but to help him navigate it more wisely. Finally, as the night drew to a close, she smiled. Remember, Ethan, the journey never truly ends. You have begun, but there is always more to see, more to understand. Walk your world with awareness and you will find purpose. Share your knowledge carefully and always act with intention. This is the way of understanding. Ethan stepped into the corridor, the glow of the door dimming behind him. He felt changed in every way, mind, heart, and spirit. The city around him seemed alive with possibility, every moment filled with unseen connections and hidden truths. He knew his life would never be ordinary again, and for the first time he welcomed it. He was ready to see, to understand, and to live a life illuminated by knowledge and purpose. The corridor was quiet, but Ethan could still feel the presence of the woman guiding him silently. He smiled to himself, knowing that the door would always be there when he was ready, and that he had stepped into a world beyond imagination. His journey had begun, and nothing could stop it now.